Then, if that word Gaul is meaning anything to you, is probably making you think of Asterix the Gaul, and Obelix, and their dog as well, Dogmatrix. But anyway, they of course were here before the Romans. Well, of course they weren't. They were cartoon characters, but they were here before the Romans arrived, and then we start to see the Romans spreading out all around Europe and creating towns and cities around the whole of the continent of Europe, including parts of France. But then by the time we're getting into the 400s, 500s, 600s, so 1,500 years ago, the Romans, their empire is starting to fall apart in the west, and they are retreating back to Rome, and we start to see the origins of modern France here in the area that we're in at the moment, going back to around about the year 481, around about. We start to see the first king of modern, well, I say modern, of using pretty much the same borders, although they grew much further from that, from the 480s onwards. But at the origins of the modern nation of France, going back to the 480s, and we see the Franks, and these are a Germanic tribe of people, and we start to see the influence of various different languages coming in here. So of course the Romans have been here, but we've also seen the Franks and the Germanic languages there, and they start to mix together, and we get something towards the modern language of French that we have today. And then over the centuries, we're getting towards the 1200s, and we start to see the medieval France, and Paris becomes a really important city because it is on the crossroads for people traveling north to south and east to west around Europe. So people traveling, if they were traveling up to Britain, obviously Paris would be on the way, and it was a convenient crossroads place. So all the roads started to lead to Paris, and it becomes a very important city, as it of course is today. But we get into the 1600s and the 1700s, and we start to see the nickname of the city coming to life, and we start to see many new important theories being come up with here, and many new thinkers coming and living here, and we start to see the universities growing and everything, and we get into the Age of Enlightenment, or it's also one of the reasons why Paris is often referred to as the City of Light. Now today, as we're driving around, of course you can think it's the City of Light because the sun is shining and we can see it all beautifully reflecting off all the buildings around us, but also because of so much big new thinkers working here in the Enlightenment period. And then also after that, it's one of the first cities which is lit up by gas lights. So when we're getting into the 1800s, and when they're knocking down this old medieval city which had tiny roads and tight corners, and it was really easy place to be a thief and to come and because you would find someone in a dark corner, and you'd stop them, and you could go and you could pick their pocket. Exactly, you could go and you could slash their bag, or you could do whatever you wanted, because nobody else could see you, and nobody could stop it. But once they've knocked down the centre of Paris and they've created it on this bigger scale, it does mean the light floods through the whole place in a much more kind of beautiful way that we get today, and we get the name the City of Light from that, and also from the gas lights that start coming in the mid 1800s, and where Paris was the light. You know, if you'd been looking at Paris, or if you've been looking at a map of Europe from above, as you could do today looking at Google Maps, then you would see Paris would be brighter than all of the other cities by a very long way, and it would create a huge difference while we're in there. Now we can see some of the big train stations here as we're coming through as well. Now obviously we arrived into the Gare du Nord, and that's the North train station. There are other train stations, so that is mainly for trains going from Paris north. There's also other stations which are going down to the south one, which is going to the west one, which is going to the east, and then in between them all you can connect using the metro in Paris, which is very similar, of course, to the London Underground. It's just a little bit later. So the London Underground we had in 1863, and we had steam trains running through the tunnels over there, but here in Paris we start to see the first underground trains in 1900, so it's 123 years old this year, and actually quite a lot more modern, but still a lot of that infrastructure from that period being used today. And you can see a sign for going into the metro over on your right hand side in just a moment as we come round the corner. It's that classic kind of 1920s Art Nouveau sign over on your right hand side there for Metropolitan. That's the word for the underground. So if you do need to travel around on it later or another time when you're back here as well, it's the metro. And it comes from the first one, which was in London, which was the Metropolitan line, and every big city around Europe, so whether that's Paris, that's Rome, or other big cities as well, they took the name Metro and they put it to get to mean the underground railway system. Now also, while we're here, let's just think a little bit about some of the day-to-day life here in Paris as well. So as I say, we've got a population of about 2.1 million, but that's just in the city. If we really take it out to the area which is known as the Île-de-France, or the island of France, it's the area around Paris. It's basically Greater Paris, or like, you know, the metro area. Then it does get up to more like 10.5 or 11 million people. So it's a huge area where people are using Paris as their base, right? You know, or maybe not every day so much these days, considering we've gone past the pandemic when everybody learned to work from home. But that huge area, the equivalent of Greater London, let's say, or, you know, or, as you can imagine, the metro area in many other big cities around the world as well. People coming into town. We have about, you know, there's about 5.5 million journeys on the underground every day. So it is a huge number of people coming into town here, and it's about 19%. So let's say 1/5 of the population of the whole of France is using Paris, is in Paris, or the Greater Paris area, and I suppose that is one way of looking at it. Meaning that the country is very like Paris central. You know, it's like a hub and spoke system going out to it. Of course, there are other big cities around France, like